Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News and your daily wrestling newscast for Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with an update on negotiations between All Elite Wrestling and Warner Brothers Discovery. The two parties have reportedly reached a tentative agreement to keep AEW programming on WBD networks for several more years, according to a report from BJ Bethel of SE Scoops that was confirmed by Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. The deal would reportedly also bring some AEW programming, including pay-per-view events, to the Max streaming platform. Preliminary agreements have reportedly been made in writing, but the agreement could change during final negotiations. The financial details of the deal are not yet known. AEW's exclusive negotiating window with WBD ended on Monday. NXT was broadcast last night on USA Network live from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. In the main event, the Rascals defeated Axiom, Nathan Frazier, and Javon Evans.
And the NXT Universe on their feet, showing these six some love. And these six now looking at each other in a nice show of respect between these six standouts here on NXT.
Metaphor defeated Carmen Petrovic and Sol Ruco when Lash Legend pinned Petrovic. Metaphor then issued a challenge to WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Alba Fire and Isla Dawn for next week's Great American Bash episode of NXT. In the opening match, Brooks Jensen pinned Josh Briggs in a no disqualification match thanks to a distraction from Shawn Spears. Oro Mensah called out NXT champion Ethan Page after besting Ashanti Adonis. In other results, Trick Williams was attacked by Pete Dunne after beating Cedric Alexander. Ren Sinclair pinned Carly Bright with help from Charlie Dempsey, and Eddie Thorpe pinned Lexis King. King attacked Thorpe after the match. In ratings news, Monday Night Raw drew an audience of 1.790 million viewers to USA Network, according to WrestleNomics. That's up from last week's audience of 1.669 million. The rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic was a 0.59, which was also up from last week's rating of 0.56. AEW Collision brought in its largest audience in 2 months, with 472,000 viewers tuning in to TNT last Saturday, according to WrestleNomics. That's an increase of 30% from the previous week's audience of 362,000. The rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic was a 0.15, which was slightly up from the previous week's rating of 0.14. In more AEW news, former Lucha Underground ring announcer and Impact interviewer Melissa Santos has signed with the company, according to a social media post from Santos yesterday. Santos is expected to be a part of the broadcast team in some capacity. Her husband is Brian Cage, who currently wrestles for AEW. And finally, turning to Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling presented Day 3 of the 2024 G1 Climax Tournament yesterday in Hiroshima. In Block A matches, Tetsuya Naito, Evil, Gabe Kidd, Shingo Takagi, and Zack Sabre Jr. all emerged victorious, with Evil and Sabre Jr. both leading the block with 6 points apiece. In the evening's only Block B match, Konosuke Takeshita defeated Jeff Cobb. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.